On September 22, 2020, our first journey started with public procurement in emergency COVID-19 country experiences and ended up on February 11, 2021. We had another series of sessions on Agp, current status, opportunities, and challenges. After the success of the first series, that second series started on March 11, 2021, and finished up on June 30, 2021. The end of that one was the beginning of the third one that we are in, and that has started on July 28, 2021. Just for a reminder, the theme of this third series of session is professionalization of public procurement and capacity building. We are almost at this end. Time flies. With this theme, we are aware not only of how it goes in the world with the various seasoned experts we have been inviting, thanks to the support of the World Bank, but also how it happens in Africa with the impressive work of member countries of our network, the African Public Procurement Network. Today's program, as the other ones, is going to be very interesting. We hope, because we were able to mobilize 11 countries out of 12, and many countries promised to be around with a lot of participants. The items on the agenda are summed up like this: open addresses of the coordinator and chairperson, Mr. Lucas Kenekai, and me, the technical secretary, the keynote speech of the keynote speaker, Ms. Craig of Laherty, the head of SIPS business for Africa, and the country case presentation from Ghana with Mr. Eric Victor Apia, the director of compliance, monitoring and evaluation of the Ghana Public Procurement Authority. Mauritius, with the CEO of the Mauritius Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. Zimbabwe, with Mr. Clever Ruswa, the CEO of the Zimbabwe Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. And Zambia, with Ms. Ida Shela, the CEO of the Zambia Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. We will have time to ask questions for more clarifications or give contribution for more understanding. Before ending up, allow me to thank the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, and also our potential new partners, SIPS, Procure Africa, and SETIM. On this note, I wish you us a wonderful session. Long life to the APPN. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think my remarks are very short. It is to welcome the team and wish that we undertake our deliberations. And I would ask that as we speak, or rather when we finish to speak, let's try to mute the mics so that the communications can be simple. I think the key thing that I would encourage is that let's continue to make this a practice and share ideas across the continent. With just those few remarks, I would then invite the keynote speaker, Mr. Craig Flahat, head of SIP's Business for Africa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for that warm welcome. My name is Craig O'Flaherty. I'm the head of SIPs for Business in the SIPs Africa team based in South Africa. I'm responsible for the training and delivery of SIPs products and services to both the private and public sectors across organizations across Africa. I'd firstly just like to recognize the Secretary General as well as the Network Coordinator and Chairperson for the opportunity and for the invitation. And thank the members of the Southern Sub-Africa Sub-Regional Public Procurement Network for the opportunity and for their time. It is indeed a great honor, and it gives me great pleasure to be able to address you today as part of this knowledge and experience sharing and exchange session. Share some experiences and hopefully inspire you to also take the next steps with SIPs on the professionalization of public procurement and capacity building. At this point, I would just like to confirm if I need to share my screen, or if you'd like to, if the technical secretary will be sharing the presentation. Shall I share my screen?
It's advisable that you share your screen.
Okay. Can I just confirm that everybody can see?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. I'll just turn off my camera so that you can focus on the slides as well. We live in interesting times. It's a time where I don't think many of us will have ever experienced so much change and uncertainty with issues in the news on a daily basis being about procurement and supply chain issues, whether it be bottlenecks, challenges, but also the huge opportunities that are present, and whether or not you're embracing the challenge or resisting the transition to whatever the new normal might be. By now, it should be clear to everyone that we are highly unlikely to return to the old, and that the world is on a new trajectory to a new normal, whatever that might be or however that is defined. There is no doubt in my mind that procurement and supply can and should play a massive role and become a strategic function. But if we don't speed up and fast track the professionalization and capacity building of the public procurement sector, we will not be able to take advantage of the many opportunities to drive social change across Africa. We have a window in which to act and take advantage of the massive opportunities, but we need to allocate, or we need to be able to collaborate more to professionalize at all levels and to ensure that we act with integrity at all times. As my fellow high school alumni, Elon Musk, recently tweeted, if you give yourself 30 days to clean your home, it'll take you 30 days. But if you give yourself 3 hours, it will take 3 hours. The same applies to our goals, ambitions, and potential. I'm sure you are more than likely fully aware that SIPS is the leading professional body for procurement and supply, established in 1932. Next year will be 90 years of existence, with an expanding footprint in Africa. The global community of over 200,000 procurement and supply chain professionals and members in over 150 countries. Across Africa, there is circa 18,653 members, but you can quite clearly see that of those, 82% are what I would term practitioners and not professionals. In terms of our definition, a professional is somebody that has achieved the MSIPS designation or FSIPS and is doing continuous professional development to keep their skills and knowledge up to date. Unfortunately, in Africa, what we see in many cases is that as soon as students are able to get employment, they do not kick on and complete their studies. This is very interesting because in South Africa and in Southern Africa, there is an average salary differential of between 34% and 28% respectively between MSIPs and non-MSIPs across all levels. So there is really a big incentive personally for students to take the next steps and to attain the MSIPs designation and become recognized professionals in the true sense. But in the majority of cases, funding is a major contributing factor and is a primary reason why this continues. Our mission is to be the authority that leads global excellence in procurement and supply, to enhance an individual's and an organization's professional capability. The coronavirus has caused much disruption, as we all now know, with factory closures across the globe due to forced lockdowns and shortages of parts. What we have seen is an over-reliance on single source or large suppliers, long lean supply chains that can't adapt to change, excessive focus on cost, lack of local sourcing, and little or no market development, and the need to beef up legislative loopholes that facilitated unethical procurement and supply chain practices, leading to looting of funds meant for emergency procurement to alleviate the impact of COVID-19. But what the coronavirus has also done is raise the profile of the entire procurement and supply chain industry and that of professionals. Never before has there been a greater focus on risk and resilience to bounce back. It has brought with it the benefits of great collaboration. Working remotely and travel restrictions across many regions have encouraged more regular contact, while more efficient ways of working have been developed. Working remotely has also forced us to take advantage of new technology. If you haven't already embedded enhanced digital technology in your organizations, then you are probably starting it now. Data within supply chains have the power to make a real difference. It allows us to make better and informed decisions around sustainability and ethical sourcing, as well as identifying blips on the supply chain side that could help detect issues sooner. I'd like to now focus on the 4 key elements that I believe that we should be looking at. The first is collaboration. The second, integrity. The third, professionalism. And the fourth, strategic function. Collaboration is the process of 2 or more people, entities, or organizations working together to complete a task or achieve a goal. We have been working closely with several public sector organizations, but I wanted to make particular mention of the PPADB, who we have partnered with in Botswana, not only on the individual professionalization of their employees, who coincidentally have achieved some of the highest marks we have recently seen on the applied learning program, but also from an organizational perspective. So in the not too distant future, you will see the PPADB achieving the globally recognized award for procurement excellence as an entity. We are also looking at future collaboration, and we're actively looking to collaborate with you and other apex bodies and stakeholders across Africa. SIPS for Business has signed a 5-year agreement with the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, to help professionalize procurement and supply chain employees and functions within municipalities across South Africa. You will have recently heard of our municipal elections, and this is part of the next journey. Earlier this year, we also won the Rwandan Public Procurement Authority tender with our local partners in Rwanda, the WEC, to assist in making Rwanda the center of regional excellence in public procurement. And more recently, I've been in discussions with the Consulting Engineers South Africa and their partners, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, to work on procurement and professionalization, specifically as it refers to infrastructure and maintenance. Integrity is the practice of being honest and showing a consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles and values. In order to get Africa on a new growth trajectory and deliver for our people, we need to utilize the limited resources that we have and ensure individuals and organizations practice ethical procurement. We have a duty to ensure staff who select and manage suppliers are trained in and adopt ethical sourcing and supplier management. Ethics e-learning and training is provided free to all SIPS members. Rand Water was one of the first public sector organizations to achieve the corporate ethics mark. But it is really a tragedy that more individuals and organizations in both the public and the private sectors don't take greater advantage of this benefit. Unethical conduct should not be tolerated, and all professionals should be encouraged to report it wherever it occurs. It's holding us back. There's no doubt about it. Professionalization, the act or process of giving an occupation, activity, or group of professionals qualities, typically by increasing training or raising required qualifications. A practitioner is someone who does meticulous guesswork based on ambiguous data and achieves unrealistic expectations under impossible deadlines. That was a joke that was shared with me before the session. And in a sense, that seems to be what some individuals feel being in procurement is about. For an individual, though, this would include one of the 3 routes to MSIPs, the longer-term skills training required to turn a practitioner into a professional. For an organization, it would involve the procurement services or the procurement excellence program. The pandemic has clearly elevated society's attention to careers in the procurement and supply chain field. And it has also resonated with a purpose-driven generation of young professionals working in our industry. Nearly 58% of young professionals stated they pursued a career in procurement and supply due to its beneficial societal impact. Now more than ever, it's critical to nurture the future procurement and supply chain leaders and equip them with the skills that they can meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. A tailored approach based on what suits the client is what we offer. SIPS for Business is trying to do and perform a holistic solution. We want to try and ensure that organizations have a range of offerings and a range of solutions that suit not only their employees, but the organization's budget and themselves too. There are 3 routes, as I mentioned. The first route is the one that most organizations, whether they be public or private across Africa, are familiar with. This is the professional qualification, and it's the exam route. It's the same route that the RPPPA are also going ahead with for their employees within the organization. It's not the only route though. There are 2 other routes that usually don't get the same kind of attention. And these are the Applied Learning Program, which is the program that the PPADB employees have recently completed, and that many other organizations who prefer a non-exam route choose to pursue. It has a real benefit for both the public and private organizations that embark on it, because it includes a cost saving or a process improvement project which the students need to fulfill. And this has great benefits for public sector organizations that are struggling with either costs or process improvement projects that they need to tackle. And lastly, the management entry route is the route that is applicable for senior practitioners in procurement and supply. And in fact, the chairperson, the executive chairperson of the PPADB, Mr. Lucas Kenekai, is on this particular route as we speak. The 4th element is what we all would like procurement and supply to become, the strategic function. If ever there was a time, it surely is now. There are bottlenecks which we hear could continue until 2023. These include global chip shortages prompted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the surge in demand for electronics. There are bottlenecks at sea. Approximately 300 container ships are currently waiting outside ports across the globe, and landside bottlenecks in trucking, warehousing, and labor shortages across ports. If firm commitments are agreed to during COP26, the pressure on public authorities and suppliers to fulfill on these obligations will only increase. with new policies to encourage environmental considerations throughout public procurement. Procurement and supply chain managers have a critical role in achieving sustainability goals for organizations, as it is within supply chains that the impact on climate must be addressed. The choices organizations in the public and private sectors make right now will ripple down for many years to come, affecting anything from water security to carbon emissions, to deforestation, to reduction in waste and better use of scarce resources. African countries are taking proactive stances and committing to move to renewable energy pathways and invest in their own resilience. Professionals that have the skills and expertise to influence and advise politicians on the best strategies to adopt to address climate change issues and many other challenges that supply chain and procurement faces need to be seen to. Those who can act fast must do so. A senior professional in procurement and supply means you've honed the technical skills needed to excel in the job. But do you have the skills to lead? In reality, most procurement and supply chain managers aren't fit to lead. The shift to senior leadership means that their responsibilities broaden from task-based focus to being largely team-based. Therefore, their skills need to shift to match their new responsibilities. A successful procurement leader needs to have the soft skills: leadership, strategy, influencing, and consulting. Stakeholder management skills, an understanding of business concepts and how organizations function beyond procurement and supply. The knowledge and skills to implement the digital advancements which are coming. With these senior professionals can lead their teams to better success and create more value for the organizations. So why partner with SIPS for Business? For starters, we share a common goal: to encourage the harmonization and effective implementation of methodologies and promoting best practices of public procurement across the continent. Increasingly, transparency and sustainability as a whole in procurement. Sharing and using innovative procurement tools to improve public procurement performance, and professionalization and capacity building of the procurement workforce. And lastly, enhancing procurement systems to deliver better services and delivery and infrastructure to the people of Africa. Over and above that, SIPS for Business is the only service provider that can offer the full suite of SIPS products and services. And we want to make this available to all members, to all individuals across Africa. We have the best value for money offering, and there's a reason for that. We service Africa, we service developing countries. It was an open tender, but you're welcome to ask the Rwanda Public Procurement Authority if you don't believe me about value for money. We have a real interest in partnering and collaborating and making sure that there are measurable cost benefits and performance improvements. We're also able to tailor solutions and contextualize content specifically for Africa and for different regions and countries, and enhance credibility and provide the recognition globally for organizations and individuals in Africa. And lastly, develop programs and content in multiple languages to service individuals and organizations in different regions, both in English, French, and Portuguese. In conclusion, the choices governments, public and private sector organizations, the profession and the professionals make right now will ripple for many down the supply chains for many years to come, affecting many different aspects. These are really important issues which the procurement and supply chain profession is uniquely well placed to address. If firm commitments are agreed during COP26, we will be under even more pressure. If Africa is going to deliver on these targets, as well as for our people, we have to pull together. As SIPs for Business, we are ready to partner with you to drive the professionalization of public procurement and capacity building. As one of the greatest leaders of our time, the past state president of South Africa, Tata Madiba, Mr. Nelson Mandela said 20 years ago, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Let's do this for our generation and the next generations of Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. All right. I think from now we are going to have a presentation from Ghana. Mr. Eric Appiah.
Yes,
How they are doing in Ghana. Thank you.
Good afternoon from Ghana. My name is Eric Appiah, and I'm presenting on the Ghanaian story. So can I also share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
I hope it's clear now that you can all see.
Yes, it's clear.
Yes, so we want to show where we have come from and what we set out to do, where we are now and where we are going to. Our Procurement Act enjoins the Public Procurement Authority to ensure that the training of public procurement officials is facilitated. And it's also supposed to develop and promote and support their training and professional development, as well as plan and coordinate the technical assistance in the field of public procurement in Ghana. So to do this, the authority set out to carry out what we call the skills and training needs assessment, which was carried out just after the Act was operationalized. So between 2003 and 2005, some analysis was done. And the outcome showed that there was very little qualified procurement personnel manning procurement in the public sector in Ghana. Again, there were a lot of stores management personnel who were parading as public procurement officers. We also realized that the polytechnics, which basically were training people in purchasing and supply, really had their programs tailored to suit the private sector. The donors also had some capacity development for projects or the project implementation unit staff. And all these were just geared towards making sure that their projects were properly managed. So though these activities were there, it was all very short term. It was not really developing the needed skill of professionals throughout for use in Ghana. So to address these, it was realized that we would need people who had the training or who had the skills, the ability to perform the tasks of procurement. Again, they should be properly qualified to be able to do so. And then have the capacity to man whatever position they are placed on, as well as the competencies that were required. So we set out to say that we're not just going to train people or introduce a professionalism, but everything that was done had to be geared towards achieving the aim of getting a critical mass of people to manage public procurement in Ghana. So from this, we realized that we needed to improve the competence of staff who are undertaking the procurement, ensure there was a continuous stream of qualified procurement professionals, and also assure such staff after their training that there will be a career path in the public service for them to rise from assistant procurement officers to chief procurement officers in whichever entity they worked in. So we adopted a two-pronged approach to do this. The first was to develop the local procurement training opportunity, to develop them, and then also to make sure that a career path was established. By way of the development of the procurement professional, we had both short and medium term as well as long-term interventions. Then for the career path, a scheme of service was developed to ensure that anybody who entered the public as a procurement officer in the public service had a career path for progression. So they were not shortchanged when they compared themselves to their colleagues who had gone into the private sector to work. So moving on, our short-term interventions, what we did was to start with some quick wins to make sure that those who were carrying out the procurement then understood what was required. So some 3 to 5 day training programs were organized to assist them to prepare procurement plans, and then also to know how to adopt the standard tender documents to meet their tendering requirements, and then also how to conduct the procurement process itself, as well as to properly carry out the evaluation and then award and administer the contracts. So this was what we call the 3 to 5 day training program, depending on what the staff had. It could be a 3-day program or could be a 5-day program. But all those were just very short-term activities to make sure that some capacity was built for them to be able to handle the procurement in the interim. Then the next was to, as I said earlier, the higher national diploma that was being, the training that was being rolled out by our polytechnics. We brought in some top-up programs so that those who wanted to continue could go back and then go through what we call the top-up programs, which range from 6 months to 2 years, depending on the areas that the person needed to specialize in. So this was part of the program, which we call the short and medium term interventions. The long term was rolled out by assisting the tertiary institutions in Ghana to restructure their course content to suit procurement in the public sector. A lot of them had some programs, but most of them were geared towards private sector procurement. But since we were more interested in getting people to manage procurement in the public sector, the nuances are not the same. So we needed to assist them to roll out these programs. Then whilst looking at the local scene, we realized that we didn't have to compromise on the international standards. So whatever had to be done or to be developed also should meet the international standards. The training programs range now from bachelor's degrees to postgraduate qualifications. So now somebody can enter our universities, technical universities, and come out with a bachelor's degree in procurement or supply chain management or procurement management, as well as have the opportunity to do a master's degree in supply chain or procurement management. Because we realized that the staff themselves also needed some trainings, we had some internship programs that were rolled out for both the student as well as the faculty, because they were supposed to understand how public procurement was carried out within the public sector, so they could also train their students appropriately. So the internship programs that were rolled out as part of the long-term intervention covered both the students and the staff. And all these were aimed at producing what we call a critical mass to manage public procurement in our country, Ghana. So that is where we moved from. Now, as part of the long term, we just didn't want to produce graduates who didn't have any future. So what was done was that a comprehensive scheme of service was also developed alongside the development of the curriculum, so that anybody who leaves with a qualification will be properly placed. And then we also have a path to rise so that it will develop their careers within the public service. So this was done with the Public Services Commission. And then the staff who were already in the system also had to be migrated onto the scheme of service so that everybody could be properly placed and also see himself or herself progressing along the path that they had chosen. The capacity building was not a one-off activity. With each grade, the scheme of service proposed some training to make sure that their skills were not rusted with time, but were kept abreast with changing times. To keep the interventions relevant, we are moving on. But what we are doing is to ensure that the scheme of service is implemented in a coordinated manner. We have a lot of services within the public service. Some have successfully implemented it, others are still struggling to do it. So PPA, the Procurement Authority, is liaising with the Public Services Commission to adopt a very well coordinated activity so that we have the scheme of service properly implemented within the public service. Our act has also been amended. So all the training materials that were produced by the Procurement Authority are also now being revised to make sure that every single provision that has been made in the amendment, especially those that relate to sustainable public procurement, are properly incorporated in our modules. The tertiary institutions also had their curriculum developed when our act had not been amended. So what we want to do now is to assist them to amend or revise their curriculum to bring it in line with the amended act as well as the current international best practices. So again, to keep the students with properly tuned qualifications. We also, in collaboration with the Ghana Audit Service and an internal audit agency, have developed and rolled out what you call the standardized procurement audit framework. This has become necessary because we had issues with auditors not being able to carry out the procurement audits properly. Our Public Accounts Committee of Parliament depends on the Ghana Audit Service reports. And a lot of the time, their findings are not in consonance with the provisions of the Act just because they didn't understand the provisions well. So this framework has been developed so that it will assist them to be able to do their work well. Just as Craig mentioned, we also, SEPS is liaising with FIDIC as well as the South African engineers. We have a lot of other professionals who also make an impact or take part in the public procurement space. So what we are trying to do is to roll out or develop a certification program which would recognize all the other professionals, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, planners, who in the normal conduct of their duty also take part in procurement. This is something that we are discussing with all the professional bodies, and it's very early days yet. So I'm sure with time we'll be able to share where we have gotten to. But this is all being done in recognition of the fact that there are a lot of other professionals whose work impact on the conduct of procurement. And when that is done, we anticipate that we should be able to help them to form a professional body, which would then be able to regulate their conduct, especially with regards to ethics, so that nobody can just say that because I am or have the certification, I can do what I want. It has to be done in a regulated manner. So basically, this is where we have come from, where we are now, and where we intend to go with the public procurement in Ghana. So thank you very much for your time. I believe that we'll be able to throw more lights when it comes to the questions and answers time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Apia. We'll go on to take Mauritius to lead us. Thank you. And just to make sure that any questions you have, you keep it for it will be at the end of the presentations. That's when we can be able to ask the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen. Just give me a few minutes. I am sorry, I'm having some difficulty in sharing my screen. Can you share the screen for me, please?
Okay, Abdul would make that
No,
arrangement.
I think I can make it. I'm trying. Just give me 2
All
minutes.
right. Okay,
2
thank you.
minutes, please. 2 minutes. Can everybody see my screen? Hello?
No,
Can
I
you see
can't
my
see it.
screen?
Probably.
You can't see the screen.
Not yet.
Not
Sorry,
yet.
I think the Secretariat has to share my screen, present my screen, please. I can't manage.
You are not seeing the green arrow there? Share screen.
Yeah, I can see that, but I can't.
Yeah, then click on it and then continue. Normally it should be not be that complicated.
I'm trying. I tried it a bit earlier, but I don't know what's happening now.
Yeah, normally you should.
Share the screen. Oh. Sorry, I'll just move out and then come back again. Sorry.
Have you opened your file?
I have opened my file, yes.
Yes, then when you put the share screen, then you go and then try to select your file.
Okay. Share screen. What's happening now? I'm sorry for this problem.
Have you? Can you please then project
I can't
his
see
presentations for him?
Yes, the presentation have been shared with you, and
Yeah, have you can
fact,
project that so that you can speak and tell him every time when you want to move from one slide to the other one.
But the presentation has been shared with you. Can we have the presentation? Can you load it
Yeah,
from your side?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking Rafi to do for you.
Yes, please do it for me. I'm a bit lost with that.
Rafi, please.
Rafi, are you proceeding? Rafi,
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abdul.
Yes, please.
Is it possible that he can start sharing while you are waiting for the screen? I'm sure he must have something before he
You
can
want to
share.
start sharing what? Sharing
the
yours
presentation.
or? Okay, you
No.
if
He can
you
start.
have-
He can start sharing his presentation while you are trying to put it on the screen, because we are listening.
Okay. Then please, sir, you can. Okay.
Okay, let me start. Right. As you're aware, Mauritius is a member of this APPN. So the Secretary of APPN, representative of APPN, delegates and participants. I'm really very sorry. I might have missed something when I started, so please bear with me. You know, when we started the public procurement system in Mauritius, it all started in the 2006. And the law was passed in 2006 and approved and implemented in 2008. So at the very onset, when we started this public procurement, we were looking at, from that end itself, we were looking at professionalizing and also capacity building in terms of public procurement. So what we did at that time, our vision, as we set it, was a world-class procurement system for the Republic of Mauritius. From the very onset, we were talking of a world-class procurement system for the Republic. And also, our mission reads to promote the development of a modern and efficient public procurement system for Mauritius based on international best practice through close monitoring, regular audit, review, capacity building, and research. So from the very onset, we were talking already of professionalization and also capacity building. Our system is based on a number of law, as I said. The procurement legal framework of Mauritius is a combination of the Public Procurement Act of 2006, the Bill Operate Transfer Act of 2016, and the Public-Private Partnership Act of 2004, accompanied by a number of regulations and directives. So we have got the Public Procurement Regulation 2008, Public Procurement Suspension and Debarment Regulation 2008, Public Procurement Disqualification Regulation 2009, Public Procurement Framework Agreement Regulation 2013, Public Procurement Diplomatic Mission Mauritius Regulation 2014, Public Procurement Electronic Bidding System Regulation 2015, the Bill Operate Transfer Projects Threshold Regulation 2020, and the Public-Private Partnership Prescribed Threshold Regulation 2020 also. As rightly said, the Public Policy Office is not only responsible to formulate policies relating to public procurement, but simultaneously issue directives, procedures, instruction, technical notes, and manual for the implementation of the Public Procurement Act in a professional manner, and also with the objective view to enhance the procurement system to be more transparent, competitive, and fair. To ensure professionalization of the public procurement procedures, the following documents have been published to assist procurement professionals. We have a Procurement Guidelines, which is what you call the procurement structure in public bodies. We have an evaluation guideline to assist in the evaluation process of tenders. And finally, we have a financial manual published by the Ministry of Finance and Accountant General Office, which is updated annually. The PPA, the Public Procurement Act, was established based on UN Sectoral Model 1994 and on public procurement and the World Bank procurement rules. It complies with international best practice and share the common objective of public procurement system. Ensures that procurement proceedings are carried out based on the basic principles of maximize economy and efficiency in public procurement and achieve best value for public expenditure. Encouraging participation in suppliers, competition among suppliers and contractors, fair and equitable treatment of all suppliers and contractors, and integrity and transparency ethics. The institutional setup that we have, the institutional setup of the public procurement in Mauritius, we have the Public Procurement Policy Office, which is an independent policy making and oversight body. The Central Procurement Board, which conducts bidding process and approval of major contract. The independent review panel dealing with application for review from aggrieved bidders. The Procurement Policy Office, as it is established under Section 4 of the Public Procurement Act to serve as an independent policy-making and oversight body, not to be operationally involved in conducting procurement or resolving procurement dispute, administered by a director and 2 independent members. The functions of the Public Procurement Policy Office is to issue instruction to public bodies concerning the coordination of their action with the office, the Central Procurement Board, and the independent review panel, to formulate policies relating to procurement, including directives, procedures, instruction, technical notes, and manual for the implementation of the PPA, to issue standard form of contract, bidding documents, pre-qualification documents, request for proposal, and other similar documents for mandatory use by every public body in implementing procurement. Prepare and conduct training programs for public officials, contractors, and suppliers concerning procurement. Conducting compliance audit, collecting and analyzing procurement data and report. So you realize that the whole structure of the Public Procurement Office is to ensure that there is professionalization at all levels of in the use of the Public Procurement Act by issuing the right directives, the right guidelines, and the technical notes. The Central Procurement Board, which is another emanation of the Public Procurement Act, is responsible for vetting of bidding documents submitted by public bodies. It conducts bidding process of all contracts exceeding the amount prescribed in the schedule. You have to understand in Mauritius that there are different types of prescribed amount for public bodies. Some public bodies have got a prescribed amount of, let's say, I'm talking in rupees, 15 million rupees. It goes up to 25 million rupees, and above 100 million rupees, it goes to the Central Procurement Board. Just recall that $1 is equal to 40 rupees, right? And it conducts bidding process of all contracts exceeding the amount prescribed in the schedule. The board is composed of a chairperson, 2 vice chairperson, and 3 other persons having wide experience in legal, administrative, economic, financial, engineering, scientific, or technical matters. The independent review panel, as in all countries where you have public procurement, you do have an agency to look after those who are unsatisfied or unsuccessful bidders. So independent review panel in Mauritius is established under section 44 of the PPA of the Public Procurement Act. The independent review panel is an independent institution mandated to entertain complaints and to review application from unsatisfied bidders who have to, in the first place, address their challenge to the public body concerned, and thereafter, if they are not satisfied, then they go for a review. Professionalization of the procurement system. With a view to facilitate the task of procurement officials, and at the same time ensuring consistency and professionalism in handling of public procurement, the Policy Office, in accordance with Section 7C of the Act, issued a set of standard bidding documents. The standard bidding documents have been prepared based on the World Bank model for public bodies to execute their procurement processes for goods, works, and services. It is mandatory for public bodies to use the standard bidding document. They may customize the standard bidding document to best suit their requirement. However, customization should not alter the basic concept on evaluation and comparison of bid. The use of standard bidding document harmonizes the procurement process at the level of public bodies, and as such, these documents are constantly being reviewed and updated in the light of feedback received and amendment brought to the PPA, to the Public Procurement Act and the Public Procurement Regulation. With a view to harmonizing procedures, and as mentioned earlier, the Public Procurement Office also prepares and issues guidelines for public bodies. The following documents were issued: modalities and procedures for negotiation, procedures for examination and evaluation of bids, user guide, handbooks for procurement practitioners covering all aspects of public procurement, detailing the various stages, procedures that have to be followed in conformity with the provision of the Act. Procurement planning. Public bodies are required to prepare and submit their annual procurement plan and quarterly report to the Policy Office with a view to achieving maximum value for public expenditure. To facilitate communication with various stakeholders, the Public Procurement Act, regulation, SBDs, circulars, and all relevant documents are posted on the website of the Public Procurement Office. Public Procurement Office also does compliance monitoring. The annual procurement plan and quarterly report are analyzed, and procurement audits are carried out in cases where major non-compliance issues are noted. The Act has been amended to provide for sanctions against deliberate non-compliance to serve as a deterrent to those involved in procurement. Therefore, at all levels, we're looking at to ensure that all procurement officers are behaving professionally. Complaints from suppliers, remedial actions are proposed where required. In case where shortcomings are noted on the part of suppliers, necessary guidance are provided by the Policy Office. Monitoring of performance of suppliers, follow-up on decision of the independent review panel is ensured by the Procurement Policy Office. With objective to ensure professionalism, innovation, and modernization in the procurement system, the Procurement Policy Office has implemented the electronic procurement system, what we call the EPS, and some people do call it the Egp, aims at standardizing the procurement structure, operation, and improving accountability, transparency, and efficiency of procurement activities. The EPS is a web-based application hosted by the Government Online Center that enable all public bodies and suppliers to electronically conduct procurement proceeding from invitation to bid up to award of contract. The electronic procurement system has brought change in the way procurement is conducted with a shift from paper-based to an electronic platform. It is good to note that the use of the electronic procurement system is mandatory as from July 2020, as referred in the budget speech of the government on 2021. On full implementation of the project, some 6,000 bids to 7,000 bids have been already been floated through the electronic procurement system, and some 205 public bodies have onboarded the system. To achieve professionalism, again, capacity building is very important, and accordingly, the policy office is responsible for training of procurement staff and or directly concerned personnel from public bodies to improve their knowledge and about procurement procedures. In this regard, to set objectives for training are as follows: to enhance the capacity of public officials involved in public procurement, to harmonize the application of procurement procedures, to train the users in the implementation of e-procurement system, and to ensure that the suppliers and the public officials are updated with changes in public procurement. Training programs are organized by the Procurement Policy Office for suppliers, training program to enhance the knowledge and skill of procurement practitioners as preparer of bidding document electronically, reviewer, and evaluators to evaluate bid electronically. In agreement with the University of Technology, new entrants in the procurement and supply cadre are offered the opportunity to be trained for: one, the certification program in procurement and supply, which we call CPPP, the BSc in public procurement and supply, and the option for a master's degree is also open in procurement and supply. As the use of the electronic procurement system to conduct procurement activity is mandatory since July 2020, the Policy Office also conducts regular training program with regards to the use of electronic procurement system for the preparer of bids electronically, the reviewer, the evaluators of bids electronically, the suppliers for the preparation and submission of their bid electronically. I have, I'm sorry, my slide is not being projected. I have the detailed syllabus of the certification program for public procurement, certification program in public procurement. I have also the syllabus for the BSc in public procurement and supply. And these, I hope that the Secretariat will circulate the PowerPoint presentation, and all the members will have a better idea of what exactly is being taught under these two courses. So as to conclude on professionalization and capacity building, I would say that professionalization and of the procurement system and the capacity building requires the regulatory authorities to approach the subject matter under multiple prongs, namely, the legal and regulatory framework must be conducive to the procurement activities. The assistance in form of advice to ensure that the law and regulation are being clearly understood and applied, adopting the electronic procurement system in order to attract more competition, aim at value for money, reduce costs, ensure efficient and effective procurement, guarantee transparency, and ease the daily activities of suppliers. With respect to capacity building, it is becoming very important to have trained personnel, hence the need for running in-service training, professional training, and giving recognition to the procurement and supply cadre. Professionalizing the public procurement and capacity building is very demanding, and it implies strategic planning and collaboration with training organizations, example, universities or civil service colleges. When looking at the performance review for further improvement, compliance audit, reports of internal and external auditors, decision of the IRP, quarterly return and request for advice from public bodies, and complaints from bidders serve as vital sources of information to identify strengths and weaknesses. The Policy Office analyzes the information to identify areas of weaknesses in the performance of procurement activities, which help to develop strategies to address them. Such strategies include review of course curriculum and organization of focused training program to improve capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, members of the APPN, I thank you for your attention. In case there is any question, I'll be ready to reply. Please bear with me. I'm really sorry I could not project my PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Clever Ruswa from Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to you all. And also, once again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to also present about Zimbabwe and the issues to do with professionalization and the capacity building. I have kindly asked the Secretariat to also support me by sharing the slides, of which I think I'm seeing the first slide on the screen. And if they could enlarge it a little bit, if it's possible, that would be ideal. The presentation outline will be as follows. I will start by giving a background to professionalization. Then we also look at the issues to do with procurement code of conduct. Then the procurement expertise, mastering the board of knowledge, and then licensing system, and the continuous professional development. So as a way of background to professionalization, as the government of Zimbabwe seeks to deliver a greater range of community services, they are looking to the procurement profession to deliver more strategic and sustainable value for money outcomes that are aligned with the government priorities and is subject to continuous improvement. Improvement in delivering public sector procurement outcomes would deliver significant savings to the government. The improvements are dependent on an investment in the professionalization of procurement's human capital in order to accelerate and understanding the application of the new knowledge and skills. And when it comes now to the procurement reforms, I will start by giving a background there. The government of Zimbabwe undertook a significant step to reform its procurement system to improve public service delivery and enhance value for money. This is one of our key objectives, which is now which you find in our new procurement, Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act, which was enacted in January 2018. So before that, you would find that we had what we call the State Procurement Board, which was both the regulator and the implementer. But with the advent of coming in of this Public Assets and Disposal, Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act in January, you would find that there's a whole section now which is now trying to promote procurement as a profession, like in other professions, be it accountants, be it the lawyers and all. This came out of a realization that in Zimbabwe, procurement in most public entities was taken sort of as a back office activity or as an administrative activity, where you would find that procurement professionals from other vocations and all would then be assigned to do procurement. And a country report was carried out for a period of 2 years, really assessing the level of procurement in the nation. And it was found out that given that as a nation, the citizens were not getting value for money. Hence, in the new act, it's now mandatory that apart from devolving procurement to the procuring entities, where the responsibility and accountability now lies with the accounting officers, there's also that very big component where procurement must be headed by qualified procurement professionals. So when we are talking of qualified procurement professionals, what is it that we are looking at? Mainly 8 characteristics there of professionalization or professionalism. One, which is competence, the mandate. It's mandatory that one should be competent as a professional. You get the job well done, and also the job done in time. We are also looking at the knowledge of the professional. You would find that Craig, in his presentation earlier on, he made mention to say we must move with times, especially to understand the bigger picture issues with regards to professionalization. So it is in that regard that we are also looking at the body of knowledge. So we are saying professionalism involves developing detailed, up-to-date knowledge, which is often highly specialized. Then there is also aspects of conscientiousness. Integrity is mandatory in our view. And we are also saying the one who is also a procurement professional must also have respect of other professions and the workspaces in which he is working from. And the issues to do with emotional intelligence, because you find that you are dealing with different stakeholders with the different expectations. Like in our case, you find that as a regulator, we are looking at 4 broad categories: government, departments and agencies, and government ministries and departments. We are looking at local authorities. We are looking at commissions. We are also looking at state-owned enterprises. So one is then to have that aptitude and appreciation of working in such spaces. And we are also talking of appropriateness and confidence there. So those are some of the issues which we are looking at. But these now can be summarized into 3 pillars. The first pillar, we are talking of the code of conduct there, then the body of knowledge and the professional body. So when we are talking of the code of conduct, procurement practitioners in Zimbabwe are now regulated and expected to abide by a code of conduct, failure of which results in serious consequences. And in our case, the authority ensures that the code of conduct is issued to all procuring entities and is published on the authority's website. Then also, before engaging in any procurement proceeding, every procurement officer signs a declaration agreeing to abide by the standards of the conduct prescribed in the Act and the code of conduct. Then when we are looking at the body of knowledge, we are also realizing that research has shown that procurement practitioners must possess the skills necessary to reduce costs, deliver value for money, fulfill social responsibilities, use excellent negotiation skills, and manage supplier relations. And more so, they are expected to be innovative now more than ever in the implementation of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act. Thus, the Zimbabwean government, to achieve greater procurement values through state entities, and the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe is developing and implementing a program for professionalization and licensing of these professionals. Let's move on to the issue of professional competencies. We are saying upgrading the competencies of the procurement workforce will allow Zimbabwe to reap tangible benefits from the ongoing reforms of its procurement system. And in that regard, the capacity building strategy therefore aims to address the deficit in qualified procurement professionals in the civil service, thereby contributing towards improving public service delivery while effective use of government's financial resources within the framework of results-based management. So how then do we develop the skills and the competencies? We are looking at one aspect, which is also continuous professional development, where these professionals also in their day-to-day duty must also have this bigger picture, which I alluded to earlier on, to say one must look at total life cycle approach thinking instead of being transactional. So here we are calling our professionals to be a little bit more strategic in whatever they are doing. Then the most critical aspect of the whole professional cycle, you would find that is procurement planning. Even when we are doing, you know, I said our act was enacted in 2018. We started with what we called a transitional period. And in this period, we were alive to the situation that organizations are going concerns, and we could then just not stop organizations to say from day one, then start by recruiting procurement professionals. We had to allow for a process where some skills would then be developed. In some instances, we would have some arrangements with the certain institutions to say, be it conversion, where people who have been working in the procurement professionals were also taking some studies towards the procurement, and we gave them the first 24 months to do that. And after an assessment, we realized that we had a long way to go, and the Public Service Commission, being the biggest employer, he had no such structures in place. And fortunately and proactively on their part, they then came on board with a structure which then started with at director level, deputy directors, and the lower ranks in terms of Public Service Commission. And in that regard, now you would find that it's easier for us now to say, for those entities which are big spenders, we then need to look at the qualifications of that professional who then sits in that, and the procurement management unit, heading that procurement management unit. More so, we are still working with the that's Public Service Commission through their academy to then customize certain trainings so that we then train for the right skills. Over and above that, we are also leveraging on the existing supply chain management skills, that is through other tertiary institutions who are offering the diplomas, the degrees, and also working with SIPs. You would find that most of our procurement professionals here in Zimbabwe are SIPs members. So we also work with SIPs Africa in that regard. And developing the course content to close the gap between the current supply chain management skills and the requirements for public procurement skill. You know, there are certain attributes required by specialist procurement practitioners, and this gap is glaring in our view. We were hoping that by now we should have closed that, but you know, because of also COVID, it also stalled a lot of other things. But we are still focusing on that, on making sure that public procurement professionals are capacitated with the right requisite skills for them to do their duties without any difficulty. Having said all that, we are also looking at the professional body. So the establishment of the Procurement Professional Committee of Zimbabwe, which shall be responsible for the membership and development of procurement profession, as well as the license of their licensing in Zimbabwe. And the ultimate goal is to have the ultimate professionals who must be self-regulating, and registration of all procurement professionals in Zimbabwe. I made mention of the law profession where we are saying those colleagues are self-regulating. So that's what we envisage this body to be like when it is full functional. And also the accreditation of tuition services provided and consultants firms involved in training and the professional development of people involved in public procurement. We also envisage a scenario where they are also part of this body. And what are the powers of this professional council? We are saying power to enforce procurement education standards established by the authority. The committee shall enforce among its members the minimum qualifications is also prescribed by the authority in line with the relevant section in our act and the regulations. And the committee shall enforce among its members the certification standards established by the authority. I also had some colleagues, especially from Ghana, where they were also talking of standards there. So the same vision, same setup, that's what we are also envisaging for Zimbabwe. In that regard, we'll be working with them in arranging public awareness activities time and again. Then licensing of these practitioners, you would find that in our public procurement disposal of public assets general regulations, it's also provided that the authority shall establish by instructions or circulars a system for the licensing of procurement officers, and the authority shall prescribe the qualifications for obtaining the licenses and may require attendance at courses of study for professional developments of licensing, and may also impose fees and licensing issued other things done or provided by the system. So when we are talking about this, I'm also happy to report, colleagues, that as a nation, this last month, we, through our line ministry and the Honorable Vice President of the nation, also launched the e-learning platform. It's a 3-stage e-learning platform from level 1 up to level 3, which is also accessible to our procurement professionals and using the virtual platforms, because we are alive to the situation that we are in a new normal, and these face-to-face trainings may pose some challenges. So when it comes to certain trainings, we are also using the e-learning platforms. Then last but not least, I will talk about the continuous professional development. The professional body may also require attendance of all courses of study for professional development of the licensees, and the board will put in place a system of CPD. And in this regard, we are looking forward to working with other institutions like SIPS and all, especially to on the aspects of CPD, which are relevant to the profession. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had for now in terms of our main topic for discussion today, which is on professionalization and capacity building of procurement practitioners. So I will entertain questions at the time when we'll be doing the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll proceed to Zambia.
Thank you. Here's my presentation.
Do you need help?
Okay. No, I'm just about to make a presentation.
Okay.
Okay, here we are. Are you able to see the screen? I'm on mute still.
Not yet.
Bonjour. C'est Madame Marianne des Comores. Je suis en train de suivre la formation sur la professionnalisation de la commande publique. Merci.
Are you able to see it?
Ida, your screen cannot be seen at the moment.
Just trying.
No, we are receiving information as double click to enter full screen mode. Double click to enter full screen mode.
I have it already, and it's shown. Can you see it? I'm sharing it. It's already on the screen.
Oh, we cannot
yet.
see.
Screen share. Oh, okay.
I cannot see it.
I'm seeing it. I am seeing it.
So
I cannot see it on my side. I cannot see it.
You can see my screen?
No, because I think Ida is still trying to share it.
Please, Ida, can you?
Okay,
Before you
okay,
can
let
do
me-
it,
let me start.
Ida needs to quit.
okay.
Oui, allô? Non, pas encore. Non, on en a pour 3 heures.
Yeah, they're saying a bit.
With sharing.
Is it okay now?
I'm just closing it so that you are able, we can get yours because we're trying to share
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Let me share.
it. Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we are. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. And for people in America, it's good morning. Okay. I'm sharing the legislation that governs the professionalism and capacity building in public procurement. For Zambia, we have actually two. There's what we call the Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supply. It's an act which requires, it was passed in 2003. It requires that everyone who is who should handle procurement must be qualified. So they have to be members and they have to be current. Then in our act also, the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008, we did have that to say anyone who's heading a procurement must be qualified. And then we carried it over in the new Act 8 of 2020. The 2008 was repealed, and we have a new Act effective 16th April this year. Section 8 of the Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supply, which is called ZIPS, says that practitioners in both the private and public sectors are required to be qualified in procurement and supply chain management recognized by ZIPS. And then it also says that it's an offense if an officer practices without being registered with the institute. So here it means that anyone who's a procurement specialist, they have to have a license to practice for the year. And if they are not, then it's an offense, and there are penalties that can be instituted against that officer. In our act, ZPP Act number 8 of 2020, under section 6, subsection 2K, it says the authority should promote capacity building and professional development in public procurement system. And then also there is encouragement to do research under the same act under M. I think you can see from there. And then even in stores, our act states that the person who's practicing must be, who's manning the stores must be a member of ZIPS, that is, they are qualified. Then we do have a circular which provided in 2019, which gave advice on the requirements of qualified specialists or procurement personnel. Either they have to have a degree in public procurement, in procurement and supply chain management, or they must have a graduate diploma, that is level 6 of CIPS. Also, they need to be members of ZIPS, like I mentioned. This is mandatory. And in the country, from the information we have with ZIPS, we have over 3,000 qualified, fully qualified procurement specialists, and about over 70% are in the public sector. And like Clever alluded to, the public sector is the biggest employer. And then 620 are managed by procurement specialists. Okay, the next slide. Like I alluded to, the ZIPS is responsible for professionalization and capacity building of its practitioners. So the Act actually regulates that before somebody is employed, they have to be qualified. And ZPPA also ensures that as we are doing the monitoring and compliance monitoring, we ensure that the people who are heading procurement units are qualified people. And we also got into I would say an MOU. What we did is we did have a trainer of trainers when we brought universities together sometime back in just before 2010, where we saw that there were a few gaps for fresh graduates. So ZPPA, in conjunction with ZIPS, we came up with a syllabus so that these people can be, when they are coming into the industry, they are qualified. They are able to practice not just theory, but what is obtaining on the ground. So we went into an agreement with several universities, like the Copper Belt University. This one has been offering these courses for quite a while. The University of Zambia, University of Lusaka, then there's also other private universities, so that whatever is being delivered is something that they'll be able to use, not just theory. Then we also included some colleges so that they can have a hands-on experience as they are learning. Then those who are doing procurement, even though they may not be qualified, but they are practicing procurement, they need to be affiliated to ZIPS and CIPS in other instances. Okay, the next slide. Zambia public procurement has the following departments which are responsible for promoting professionalism and capacity building. We have the Department of Research and Capacity Development, and these are the people who conduct interventions, and this is done through workshops, seminars, on-job training, and virtual trainings. We've also entered into memorandums of understanding, which are alluded to with training institutions, so that we ensure that the students are not just being taught theory, but they are able to conduct procurements properly, and then they can also be attached. Then the department also conducts research and provides advisory services in public procurement policy, implementation, review, and amendment. Then we also have the Department of Compliance Monitoring. Like I mentioned, they do assessments and ensure that the procurement units have the relevant personnel, including the equipment, so that procurement is carried out professionally. Then also compliance monitoring to ensure that they are doing the procurement according to our Public Procurement Act as well as regulations. And they also do procurement audits so that we see that they are adhering to the procurements, to the law and whatever is obtaining. Then there's also advisory services where they see that we see that there are gaps here, we tell them what to do, and we give them a time frame in which to address certain things. And then we make follow-ups to ensure that they are complying. Then they also liaise with the research and capacity development, where you see that maybe their PE is weak, then we do tailor-made trainings. So they recommend, and then the research and the capacity development department conducts those tailor-made. When we have a bit of money, we do them free of charge, but we ask the PEs to pay for the trainings, and it is more to cover administrative costs. Then we have the EGP. The EGP also conducts assessments to ensure that before the PEs are brought on board, they have the necessary equipment and they are ready for the online submissions. So they train both the suppliers as well as the PEs, because the suppliers are the ones who bid, so they need to know how to submit bids online, and then the PEs also need to know how to accept bids and evaluate online. Then what is EGP? I think we know what it is. Like I said, it allows the public institution to involve suppliers in acquisition of goods, works, and consulting services required by the public sector. And this EGP was embarked on sometime in 2016 on a pilot project. And the legal framework next slide. The legal framework is it's in our law, where we are allowed to have a framework and like improvement and transparency. So this is to enhance transparency, and the training for PEs is focused on an end-to-end system. Then this is what the modules has. We can go to the next slide. The Agp module. Yeah, so it has registration of procuring entities, bidders, and other users, and all bidders must be registered to participate in bidding opportunities. Then there's the e-tendering module. This manages the tendering life cycle from advertisement to the notice to issuing of an award of contract. Then we have e-notification, which publishes the contract notices, awards, procurement plans, tenders, and other things. Girish talked about procurement plans. That one is one of the things that we do every year. Our PEs are supposed to give us procurement plans by 15th of every month of January after the budget approval, so that we know what they are doing. And even when we are monitoring them, we know what they are doing and the method. So that is also one of the ways of enhancing professionalism. Then we have the e-contract management. It establishes, manages, and monitors contracts, collects bid history, monitors performance against agreed service level agreements and KPIs, and it also alerts buyers. So then we have the auditor, Auditor General. This is an option to audit the tendering process from bid submission through to contract execution level. It's not yet functional, this one, but I think somebody did allude to, Ghana alluded to this one where the Auditor General comes in. So we also have this system. Then the Auditor General, Attorney General, all contracts have to go through the Attorney General. So this is also an option to approve contracts via the EGP system. It's not yet fully functional, but these are the options that it has so that we quicken the process. Like I mentioned, the EGP was launched in July 2016. And when it was launched, it was in a phased manner. We have been rolling it out, and so far we have 283 procuring entities on the EGP against a total of 620. 147 have been trained, while 60 are the active, meaning the 160 are not very active. And the problem has been more of, I think, change embracement. But the good thing is that in our new act, we have made EGP compulsory, and we are hoping that everyone by 2024 will be on board. So those who are not yet ready, like in terms of having equipment and other things, we have given them the 3 years grace period so that come 2024 April, everybody's on the EGP. Then we've had, the EGP has had its challenges. Even though we have trained quite a number of them, some of them, they come back and they are not using the EGP, and they have to be trained several times. So what we've done to discourage them to be trained all the time, since we don't have resources, if they were trained and then they come back, we ask them to pay for the training. Then, like we said, out of the 147 trained procuring entities, only 60 are active. It means the 87 may require additional training. Then professional background to capacity building. The next slide. From 1996 to 2000 and to 2021 to date, over a period of 25 years, there's been public procurement reform supported by cooperating partners or development partners under the following. The first one was what we call the FILMAP, that is Financial and Legal Upgrading Management Project. This was from 1996 to 2001. And here, as regards to professionalism, the cooperating partners funded ZPPA, by then it was Zambia National Tender Board, and 100 graduates were trained from the universities. They had their first degrees, but then they had to do CIPS, and this was an accelerated program which was done within 18 months. And the project also equipped the procuring entities with equipment like computers, copiers, and other, including vehicles as well. Then there was another one called PSCAP, which is public service capacity building. This one, it was from 2001 to 2006. Again, the training of procurement specialists continued. And this time it was actually in most of the PEs. It was not just ZPPA, it was all the procuring entities. And there were trainings in procurement programs like World Bank procedures, as well as they also funded the operation of vehicles so that there's efficiency and improvement, because most of the PEs depended on the poor vehicles, and that used to delay things. So they bought vehicles, and each PE was given. And they also funded the reform in public procurement legislation. Continuation. We also had another project in 2006 to 2012, which where there were public sector reforms in financial management and procurement. And they also funded some equipment like motor vehicles, computers, and they also funded the review of our act, the one for 2008. And then they also sponsored several trainings for public officers. And this project also continued from 2013 to 2018. And this time around, they even introduced a component of a master's degree for procurement people to do their master's degree at the Copperbelt University of Zambia. They also funded the establishment of the electronic government system, the Egp, which I was talking about. And they supported the review and amendment of legislation in public procurement, as well as the purchase of equipment for PEs. The knowledge and lessons learned from professionalization and capacity building, the future outlook. Next slide, please. The one before this, the one before that. Two, no one. Yeah, this one. Maybe this one was, okay.
Next one.
The next one? Yeah, no, it's this one. Okay. Maybe it was skipped, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's cut. This one, I'll just read it. Professionalization and capacity building is a continuous process and requires long-term investment in both human capital and non-human resources for public procurement to realize optimal operating environment for all players in procurement and supply chain management. The support from cooperating partners has helped the country to upgrade public procurement system as the procurement standards have been benchmarked against best international practices of the World Bank, UN, COMESA, EU, AFDB, GIZ, and ZPPA has continued to approach cooperating partners to sponsor reforms in public procurement to attain the best and conducive procurement environment in the country. We had the introduction of the Egp, which I talked to, and this was a radical change from the manual procurement system. And I must report that Zambia was one of the models, and we've had people coming to learn from us. And this was all done to promote transparency, competition, fairness, integrity, and value for money in public procurement transactions. The Egp system uptake and utilization by procurement entities is rather slow, like I've alluded to, and requires rejuvenation and other interventions. And I'm glad to report, like I said, that with the law being mandatory, I think, and then also bidders have to be engaged so that they embrace the Egp, because it's for the benefit of them as well as the players, because it's a more transparent activity. And we will need to scale up its full usage by encouraging the bidders as well as the PEs to use the Egp. Then there's a big gap between the need for professionalization and capacity building on the resource envelope, because as much as we would like to train as many as possible, like even through the universities, because what we agreed was that we can't manage as the ZPPA, but they can go through the universities, but sometimes the funds are a limiting factor. And that is what has also helped constrained us from training as many as we would like, because whenever we see a need, we would like to intervene, but there's been a financial constraint. And that ends my presentation. For questions, we'll be ready when everybody's asking questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is now time for questions and answers. And I would ask that when you filled out the question, just identify who you are talking to. so that we
Excuse
can be
me,
able
sir,
to,
Alassane Bab.
they can be able to give answers. We can have the questions. Just raise your hand on the system, then we can be able to.
Dr. Lucas,
Yes, sir.
I cannot see where I have to raise my hand. Oh, here it is. Thank you.
And Tatena Sedi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lucas. I have a few questions from, let me start by appreciating the presentation from all. So my first request to you, Sir Lucas, is that is it possible that you are going to share all the presentation from all the presenters for all the participants, please? If yes, then allow me to go directly to my concerns. Let me go to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe talked about code of conduct, whereby he emphasized that procurement professionals have to sign the declaration form. Yes, I understand that it's a good practice, but I never heard him talking about whether this code of conduct concerns the business community. Is there anything that they have to sign for compliance and for best practice? If not, why, please? Then allow me to go to Ghana. The presentation of Ghana talked about domination on procurement, on stores management, as opposed to procurement. So my question is that how do they balance the stores management with regard to procurement? Because from where I am, when you are talking about stores management, is something different from procurement management. So how do they reconcile the two? Furthermore, allow me to go to Mauritius. Mauritius, my concern is how does it select its central tender board for managing those tenders of high threshold? How do they select the members of the central tender board? Then allow me to go to the presentation that was made by Mr. Craig on SIP's business for Africa. On his pie chart, I didn't see Lesotho there where I'm sitting at the moment. Is it because it's not there at all, or the pie chart was just an sample? Because I would like to know the status of Lesotho in regard to the whole of Africa. Let me go to Zambia. The presentation on Zambia, I talked about stores management, which from her presentation is being part and parcel of the procurement. So from where I'm sitting, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right when I'm saying that I consider stores as cash in kind. Therefore, that function, I take it to be a clerical work. Stores, it's like cash in kind, whereby from where I am, I don't think that is the professional or technical functions of the procurement practitioners, but rather is the function of the accounts, whereby you receive and you issue. So what is the logic of maintaining stores management within the procurement functions? Another concern in Zambia is that I would like to hear from Madame there about the internet coverage, because he talked about that they have gone in electronic government procurement. Therefore, I want to know the internet coverage of Zambia and its reliability as far as internet is concerned, because where I am, I have a problem of reliable internet. It's on and off and on and off. Therefore, if I can venture into it now before I manage that issue, I'll be putting myself in problem. Last but not least, my experience is that procurement, whether you like it or not, has many challenges. One of them is non-compliance. Another example is there are many intruders in the procurement practices. By intruders, I mean people who are not legally or who are not procurement practitioners by profession, who will want to interfere in the procurement system. Therefore, I want to know from each of these members that I have stipulated here, how do they manage the challenges? Whether it's this example that I talked about, but challenges are there. How do they manage the challenges in their procurement arena from their respective countries? Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We'll take just one more participant to ask questions, and then from there they will be able to get the responses. Thank you. We'd have Ambe M.
No, thank you very much, Program Director. It's Prof. Marcus Ambe from South Africa, University of South Africa, and a member of the Interim Supply Chain Management Council of South Africa. Indeed, I was delighted with the presentations, and it's an opportunity for us to be able to learn from one another. Mine will be very short. I think I'll go straight to correct from SIPs. Indeed, SIPs have been able to establish a footprint in the continent. You mentioned about 4 key focus areas: collaboration, integrity, professionalization, and strategic function. The first question I would like to ask you is that in order for us to be able to ensure that we have sound professionalization model and efficient capacity development strategies in place, we need one key stakeholders, which is the academics. How is SIPS relating with academics? I know we've had a lot of conversation in the country in South Africa about establishment of the SIPS Academic Forum. And I'm also the president of African Institute for Supply Chain Research. We just collaborating and just finalized a research with SIPS at the moment. So I'm asking from a broader perspective, how do you intend to foster collaboration? In terms of you mentioned about practitioners and professionals, and that there's a clear line that we have many practitioners and we have few professionals. And from your context, you classify a professional as someone that have been able to achieve an MSIPS. Now, we, from the university context, we receive so many inquiries from students to say, we've got an MSIPS, we want to do a formal qualification. And at what level is MSIPS pitch?
Mr. Ambe, I think, are you finished Okay, we can go to Mr. Njuja. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. My name is Lisani Njuja. I work for the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Board as a capacity building coordinator. My question will go to the last presentation on Zambia. I know they talked about the act providing for licensing and also some penalties for those individuals who practice procurement and do not comply with the licensing requirement. I was asking as to whether the Act also speak to organizations that will engage a non-compliant specialist to do their job, whether the law speaks to what form of action will be taken against such an organization as well, because I think it's a two-way thing. Is the individual having to comply, and also the organization that engage them have to ensure that the legal requirements are complied with. So I just wanted to appreciate that point. Thank you.
Program Director, I don't know if I can come in. I was indeed challenged with load shedding, so I just moved to my data. Apology on that.
Okay, can you finish off your question and then we can have
Thank you very much. Apologies. There's a crisis which we are facing in the country at the moment. So like I was indicating that we've got a lot of inquiries from students that actually have their MSIPs and they want to have a formal qualification. And we've actually find it difficult, but I know Craig can be able to help me in terms of the classification of MSIPs in line with the SAQA classification. The other question which I wanted to ask is to Mr. Apia Eric from Ghana, that indeed I did really enjoy the presentation, and it's a step in the right direction, which I really appreciate. But what I wanted to find out in terms of the transformation, in line with the professionalization part that you did engage in, what specific challenges did you experience? Because I had to, given the context of the short-term measures as well as long-term measures, which I think it's more sustainable to be able to build capacity. But as you were doing that, what specific challenges did you have? Also, did you have any specific support from the government that helps in terms of your collaboration and alignment of your programs and looking at the university's curriculum to be able to ensure that the curriculum speaks to the needs of public procurement? And lastly, in terms, you mentioned the fact that you're looking at building a professional body that will look at in terms of regulating the practice. Now, that will be a regulator. What is the perspective of the professional organizations in the space as you're trying to be able to drive this particular vision? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's allow the presenters to respond. We'll start with Craig from SIPS.
Thank you for the questions. Lesotho was in fact, is definitely included, but in terms of actual membership numbers, it's fairly small. So it was included in the rest of Africa, where a number of countries are obviously combined together. So because it comprises a small percentage of the group, of the collective, it was included in the rest of Africa segment of that pie chart. Prof. Amba, in terms of some of the questions that you've asked, obviously SIPS from a SIPS for business, and you have SIPS the professional body, and I know that you work very closely also with SARI from the professional body side. So from an academic perspective, I know that this has been something that the professional body has been working on for a while and discussing for a while in terms of collaboration and partnering with other academic institutions. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that particular one because it doesn't really fall within my ambit. But I can tell you that that is taking place. SARI is working on it with different organizations, both public, so from a university perspective, but also from a private perspective as well. So some of the private institutions that are wanting to offer the qualifications. In terms of the question with regards to practitioners and professionals, I think what we're seeing is a number of individuals that maybe do a level. They probably have the full intention of starting and continuing, but it's not always possible due to funding. Sometimes organizations only pay for specific training. So what we see is that students do a particular module or a particular level and then don't necessarily continue. And what we term professional is somebody that effectively is doing continuous professional development. So they're keeping their skills and their knowledge current. Obviously, a lot has changed in the world in the last 18 months, 20 months. It's to try and make sure that obviously those individuals, what was learned 5 years ago or 10 years ago is built on, and that individuals don't stay stagnant and are practicing procurement and supply based on knowledge that they gained 10 years ago. So I think there's a definite need to encourage students and professionals to continue to take that step to ensure that they're not just practitioners, but they do professionalize from a holistic perspective and keep their knowledge current. Because the last thing that you want is for individuals to be practicing using outdated methods and outdated knowledge. And then in terms of the MSIPS level, so the MSIPS is the designation that is recognized by SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority in South Africa. Obviously, the SIPS qualifications are global, are international qualification regulated by Ofqual. But in terms of the SAQA NQF level, the MSIPS designation is the equivalent of NQF level 8. I know there's been a number of changes at SAQA recently, and SARI is also engaging on this particular aspect to ensure that individuals that have achieved the MSIPS designation maintain that. And for any individuals that are in different countries, you can also, not only South Africans, but in different countries across Africa, you can also apply for what we call a certificate of equivalency. So SAQA recognizes the designation and the level, and they will then issue a certificate of equivalency from a local perspective. So I think those were the 4 questions that were directed at me. I hope I've answered them satisfactorily.
Thank you. We can have Zambia responding to the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll start with the last question on the act providing for penalties, whether it applies to organizations. The answer is yes, because the Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supplies Act is an act of parliament, and it like I said, it just doesn't apply to the practitioners, but even the person who is employing the person who is not qualified. So usually what happens is that in case there's a job advert, the moment you see that they are getting somebody who is not qualified, then ZIPS comes in. So they do these inspections to ensure that people who are qualified are the ones who are employed. And then even as they are employing, organizations are encouraged to check the website because all the members are on the website. And in case they are not sure, they can actually inquire from ZIPS to ensure that they are employing qualified people. So there's a penalty even for the organizations if they employ somebody who is not qualified. Then on procurement intruders, yes, like I said, it's like that is why the Act is there to try and regulate these people so that people who are doing procurement are qualified. Where they are not qualified, Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supply is supposed to take the necessary measures. But there are some times when you find that maybe in a procuring entity, there may just be one or two, and maybe the assistant is not qualified, or maybe the one who is heading the department is not qualified, but they are a member of CIPS. Those are the ones that or ZIPs, those are the ones that we review and ask that, like ZPPA will say, okay, maybe if they are falling under a ministry, we tell them to see if they can second somebody who is more qualified than the person who is heading there. It is, it's all there. It is all done to promote professionalism so that because a procurement person who's heading a procurement unit is not supposed to be just like a clerical person, because they have to do reports, they have to do procurement plans, they have to do evaluations. There's so much that they have to do. And that is why we even recommend that they report to the accounting officer or the controlling officer, because they are strategically placed. So the intruders are dealt with, but of course, you know, things that have to do with breaches, they take a bit of time. So there's that disciplinary and all those things. So, but the Act is there to try and guard against such intruders. Then the one on internet coverage of Zambia and its reliability. Of course, Zambia is a big country, and we know that there are some places which are remote, and we did recognize that we could not, in fact, we would have rolled out the electronic government procurement system by 2021 this year. That was our aim, but we realized that there are some far-flung areas who are not connected. So we took advantage of that, and we took recognizance of that, and decided to give them 3 years. And with us, what we did, we worked with Smart Zambia, which is a government institute which does which has been providing computers. So we thought when we ride on them, we would have achieved this milestone by 2021. But unfortunately, when we're talking about resource envelopes, the government did have some challenges of money, and the roll out of the internet connectivity on the local network area was not as it didn't go as anticipated. So we've actually been collaborating with them. We have an MOU with them so that those entities where they are already connected, we are able to come in and train, and then they can use the EGP. The last question, I didn't really get it when he was asking about the logic of maintaining management in procurement. This one, I didn't really get it because in stores. Okay, maybe you can handle it.
Yes, the question was on the maintenance of stores and procurement in our legislation. Well, we take recognizance that the underlying profession is either called purchasing and supply chain management, or it's procurement and supply. So it's an intertwined aspects of procurement and supply. And these should not be separated, must be managed as one entity. So that's why we've retained stores to be part of procurement also. And it's better that they are knitted together so that at least matters relating to procurement initiation, matters relating to replenishment of stock items or inventory are well coupled, and there's a rational management of procurement and supply so that ultimately the end user get proper value for money in that service that has been rendered by the procurement and supply function. Thank you.
I hope the questions have been tackled according to expectation.
Yes, thank you. We can have Zimbabwe responding to the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For me, I'll try to answer the two questions from colleague Lesali there from Lesotho. The first one was on the code of conduct, where he mentioned that we only spoke about it applying to practitioners and why not to bidders. I think it's a very interesting question in the sense that if one is to look at the public procurement and its methods, from our end, we felt it's best that we control things which are within our sphere of influence. In this particular instance, if we are to control the practitioners themselves, having them to sign a code of conduct. Yes, in our Act, for those who have got access to our Public Procurement Disposal of Public Assets Act, Chapter 22-23, it is also on our website. There are provisions, if you allow me, colleagues, to be very specific. Section 71 speaks of the code of conduct for the procurement officers. Then the section 72 speaks to code of conduct of bidders and contractors, and what then is expected of them. How we then probably saying pragmatically try to address this, because if one is to look at, say, for argument's sake, if you may allow me to digress a little bit, if we are using procurement methods, say the competitive method, where you then send out your bids, invitation to bid or tendering there, definitely you are bound to find new suppliers there and then. And the only way we felt it's proper then to regulate them and also to put them on check is to then address it through the standard bidding document, where in that document you then have a declaration form which then somebody declares to say, in terms of eligibility, I abide by this and I'm not dishonest, I'm not corrupt, I'm not all those things which we put as a criteria there. So that way, we felt that that's how we can then manage that. Further to that, you would find that through the monitoring and evaluation division or department or mechanism, we then need to verify, carry out some due diligence in terms of how these bidding committee, the contractors and bidders are then working. So, like I said, it's an interesting question. We may want, if there are experiences, we may also want to see how other jurisdictions are dealing with that. But currently, that's how we are managing it as per our Act and also regulations. Then the second question was with regards to non-compliances. How do we deal with that? Yes, with regards to non-compliances in general procurement, starting with the practitioners or the procuring entities themselves, in our regulations is very specific. There are sanctions to that or penalties to that. Yes, we went further to divide it into two to say some of them are of criminal nature and the due processes will be considered as and when one breaks such law. And the other one is the administrative one, where we found a gap and we've tried to improve that through use of M&E regulations to say, if we find that these were not followed, how then do we address such? So this is how we then try to capture that. But like I said, ours is a very new law in terms of enactment. We are 3 years down the line. We still have a lot of continuous improvement to be carried out and also learnings from other colleagues. But currently, these are the things which we have tried to address either through the Act itself or the regulations or the continuous improvement of such regulations as we are implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you. We can have Ghana and then Mauritius answering the questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir. This is Eric from Ghana. With regards to the stores management, the comment was in relation to what pertained before intervention on introducing the professionalism into the public procurement space. That is what existed when the skills and training needs assessment was done. So what we did was to integrate all of them into the new scheme of service, placing them properly. And as the colleague from Zambia said, you can't separate stores management from procurement. Definitely it has to be linked. So that is what has been done for that. With regards to the curriculum that was developed, PPA played the lead role, but coordinated it for all the, we put together a team of experts. If I was funded by the DFID then. So what we did was to get team experts in curriculum development from our universities, together with some from outside Ghana. All that they did had to be properly cleared by the National Accreditation Board before it could be used by the universities and then the polytechnics then, which are now the technical universities in Ghana. So all of it wasn't just done by PPA for PPA's sake, but was PPA leading the development to make sure that whatever is done can be used by the universities. Again, you realize that each university has its own style. So what was done was a general thing that was passed by the Curriculum Development Board as well as Accreditation Board, so that the universities could pick them and then develop, adapt them to suit what they wanted to do. But the overall aim was that all those who would be so qualified would have the basic requirements of being able to work in the procurement supply chain management space. With regards to the setting up of the professional body, that also is going to be led by the Public Procurement Authority. What we cannot do it and then regulate that, because that would be regulating professionals. So that is also going to be led by the authority, but with all the professional bodies giving inputs, because this has to be owned by them. So what we are doing is to create the forum or environment and give the necessary support for that to be done, so that when it is done and it is formed, they would own it and then regulate themselves. I hope I've been able to clarify these matters. If there are any, I'm still standing by.
Thank you. Mr. Mauritius, you had a question. You had a question to answer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The question was, how do they select members of the Central Procurement Board? I won't venture into a reply, but I would go straight to the law. The Public Procurement Law provides for the setting up of the Central Procurement Board, which shall consist a chairperson, 2 vice chairpersons, and 3 members having wide experience in legal, administrative, economic, financial, engineering, scientific, or technical matters, and appointed. And since these posts are constitutional posts, they are appointed by the President of the Republic, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, tendered after the Prime Minister has consulted the leader of the opposition. And I can assure you that presently all the members of the Central Procurement Board are career retired professionals from the private and the public sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask that we only have just one question from each person, and then indicate to who the question is directed to. So I'll start with Mr. Sebulao, and then we'd have Julius, Mr. Offense Julius, and then we have Paul Kumar. Mr. Sobolao.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Sobolao has stepped out. What the question is directed to Mauritius. The presenter did mention that they have a guidelines that deals with embassies. So we'd like him to share with us, how do they deal with people dealing with procurement? Are they professional specialists, or are they just normal administration people dealing with procurement at those specific embassies?
Thank you. Julius.
Thank you, sir. My name is Julius from Public Service of Botswana. I had two questions, but since we said one, I just want to have my colleague from Zambia to share with us her experience in terms of shortage of procurement professionals in their public service, whether they experience turnover of procurement professionals leaving the public service for either parastatal or private sector. And if so, there is turnover. What is it that the government is doing in order to retain them? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul Kumalo.
Thank you, colleagues, and good afternoon. My name is Mpong Malo from National Treasury, responsible for SCM policy and legal under the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, and currently the chairperson of the Interim SCM Council. The question I have is that we're talking about professionalization of the procurement space. Now, I want to find out, how do you see the entire value chain in professionalization? And do you think that, and this is directed to all the speakers, do you think that the professionalization is only limited to public sector? Because when we look at a profession, it's a profession as anybody who is in that profession, irrespective of where they are. What is the approach by the different speakers? Thank you.
Thank you. We have Nat Leopold.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucas, and thank you to the whole APPN for organizing another excellent event. My name is Knut Leipold. I'm a procurement hub coordinator for the Southern African countries, based here in Washington, DC, and together with George Daniel and Tesfaye, we hold the flag in the area of public procurement in the Southern African countries. Thank you also to the presentations. This was great. And I see there's a lot of interest, which is always good. And this is actually a good example of capacity development, what we are doing today. Yet we know that a lot of groundwork is being done by procurement officers in all the countries, oftentimes in small agencies, also in larger agencies. And my question is related to that. And it has to do a little bit with emotional intelligence that we could hear with the soft skills as part of the professionalization agenda. And perhaps if a country could have an example of how they address this issue, or maybe Craig from SIPS could tell us whether this is also being taken into consideration in the learning and professionalization framework of SIPS, is that the reputation of the public procurement function typically hasn't been very good. Procurement is considered to be, public procurement officers are considered to be, policemen, policewomen who try to focus only on compliance and not so much on the outcomes and on enabling good public service delivery, but focusing really on the rules of the law. So the question is, how do we address this soft skill in the professionalization agenda as part of the professionalization agenda in order to change the perception
of the public procurement function from the sort of police to an enabler for better public services, job creation, economic growth, and all the good things that are associated to that. Thank you.
Mauritius, you can start to respond to the questions that was asked earlier.
Yes, thank you. With regards to the regulation on diplomatic mission, I mean, the basic are the same. We define the procurement principles, and we talk about value for money. We talk about efficiency, integrity, and accountability. And we talk also about transparency, non-discrimination, proportionality, and competition. But as far as the procurement methods are concerned, we talk about open advertised bidding, the choice of procurement method, and restricted bidding, competitive negotiation. But what is more important for members to understand is that the bidding and the contract document, every mission subject to paragraph 2 of the law, customized bidding document in use by public bodies in the host country, and submit the document to the supervising officer for finalization with the collaboration of the policy office. So when you are based anywhere in the world, you can use the document which is being used in that particular country, provided when you use it, you customize it and then send it for approval with the supervising officer and also with the policy office. And also the mission has also the option of using the bidding document other than that of the host country after approval by the supervising. That is, in some cases, we might decide as Mauritian that you have to use the bidding document of the Mauritian bidding document, which are standard bidding document prepared by the public policy office. And as far as the bidding process is concerned, you will use the procedure as stated in the law and contract award, etc. But then there is also the need for debriefing for unsuccessful bidders as provided in our local laws. This is a bit in general, but it is a document that is published on our website, which is the ppo.govmu.org, and you have all the regulation. You will have the regulation of for diplomatic mission of 2014 published there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the next would be Zambia. Can you respond to the question that was asked? And if it is possible for you also to address what Nkumalo was asking, and also what was being asked by Mr. Leopold. So,
Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
The one on the
yes, Mr. Mukherjee.
Just a follow-up. The gentleman did not respond on the staff they use at embassies, or are they procurement specialists, or they're just general staff doing admin? And if so, have they done any a bridging course for them to be trained in procurement? Staff at the embassies, are they procurement specialists, or they're just general staff with some form of bridged course for them to undertake procurement? And in addition to that, are they, as we talk professionalization, are they licensed to do that, or what form of certification or accreditation are they given when we now talk of professionalization? Thank you.
May I respond, please?
Yes, please respond.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, I think. First of all, let me tell you, there is a it's not mandatory to be a professional procurement officer in Mauritius, but all procurement officers, as I said in my presentation, if when it will be circulated, people will see that all those who join in the procurement and supply cadre have to follow a certification program in public procurement and procedures, right? This is the basic. Now, with regards to a mission where they have to do a procurement, obviously, there is the standard document as prepared by the Public Procurement Office that you can use that. But if the country where you are based has got a different type of procurement method or procurement procedure or document, then you can customize the document that we have in Mauritius, the standard bidding document, to meet the requirement of that particular country where you are based. And these documents are sent locally to Mauritius, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and there the procurement officer will go through the document, will see that the document is in line with the requirement in that particular country, and also will come to the Public Procurement Office to get it certified that whatever is being done is according to the law. And this goes to the supervising officer of that particular ministry, who approves the procedure that is being followed, so that then it is taken up at the level of the mission to proceed with the particular bidding exercise. And then, of course, if there is a need for evaluation at that level, experts are needed, they will be recruited. Otherwise, all the documents will be sent locally to be evaluated and then recommended for award. This is what we can do. I mean, we can't recruit experts in procurement to sit in diplomatic mission and to work once in a blue moon. So we have to establish a procedure where there is a control at the level of the country, at the Republic of Mauritius, and then upon recommendation from here, they act there. This is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. We can have Zambia responding.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you, my apologies.
The experience of shortage of procurement experts in Zambia or specialists, I would say more of resource constraint than shortage, because we have a lot of people who are professionals or who are qualified, and some of them don't have work. And the government in the last 3 years hasn't been taking on a lot of people, because government is the one which employs a lot of staff. So we hope that now there will be more openings and they will be taken on. So in terms of shortage, it has to do with more of resource constraint, but otherwise, as regards the personnel, we do have enough for people who are qualified. And what is the government doing to retain these professionals? Like I alluded to, ZIPS as well as the ZPPA, we have been realized the strategic role which the procurement people play, and that is why in our act a procurement officer is supposed to report to the chief executive officer or the controlling officer in the ministries. And the public service is aware of that, and they've placed procurement people. Previously, they were placed very low, but with time, they have recognized the role they play, because they have to ensure they save costs. So their positions have been upgraded in most of the ministries, but not every ministry and not every organization. But that is something that is that has been worked on, and we've seen progress. So at least there's some progress in that area. Also, the government in 2013 brought out what was called rationalization, and where there was the emphasis was on equal pay for equal work. So you find that if you have similar qualifications, you'll be remunerated accordingly to your qualification, not where somebody has a degree, they are getting more than somebody who's maybe a diploma holder. But there is that equal pay for equal work, and there's been some improvement in that area. Also, most practitioners have been sent for trainings. Most of them have got masters and all those as a way of giving incentives to the professionals. So at least there's been some improvement, but there's more that is being done in that area. And the Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supply is actually supposed to advocate for more of the remuneration and other concerns in the area. Then on whether professionalization is limited to the public sector, the lady from South Africa, she said, of course, to all the presenters, like I mentioned, for us, the Act, the Zambia Public Procurement, the Public Procurement Act is limited to public entities, but the Zambia Institute of Purchasing and Supply Act of 2003 involves all the parties, as long as somebody is a procurement specialist, whether they are in the private or in the public sector. So it is actually, it applies to both. So it's not just limited to the public sector. The only thing is the public sector comes out more because they employ more than 70% of the practitioners. So that is why, but otherwise it applies to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sips, can I have a response to Mr. Leopold? Thank you.
So I'll talk to both. So just a little bit on the whether or not professionalism is just a public sector initiative. Absolutely not. Obviously, it is in the public eye. So I think in South Africa, as a result of the last number of years, there's definitely been much more of a focus on the public sector, but it's most certainly not isolated or limited to the public sector. We work with private organizations, private sector companies across the entire SADC and East Africa region, from Equity Bank Group in Kenya and East Africa, all the way down to the southern tip of South Africa. So it's definitely not something that is limited to public sector. You might be interested to hear that we are actually trying to form collaboration across both public and private. So we're working in South Africa to bring in organizations like Business Leadership South Africa, which represents a number of the big private sector organizations and companies, and together with an initiative, the National Business Initiative, working closely with the likes of Solga to try and ensure that this is something that we do not only at national level, but at local government level as well, because that's obviously where a lot of the public interact with government, with the public sector. So we want to obviously try and make sure that from an outcomes perspective, that we change outcomes at that level so that people on the ground actually see and feel some of the changes and some of the differences that procurement professionals can make to them, to their lives. In terms of reputation and the outcomes, like I mentioned, it's critical. There's no way that you're only as good as your weakest link. Your organization, whether it be the public or private sector, you might think that you've got everything in place, all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and it only takes one individual or a slip to actually bring the reputation of the organization into disrepute. So it's critical. It's important to try and make sure that we upskill across the board holistically, so that we don't have individuals, only certain individuals that actually understand what it is to practice, for example, ethical procurement, and others that are unaware of that. In terms of soft skills, and this talks a little bit to what I was talking about in terms of procurement becoming a strategic function, it's vital that that procurement practitioners not only have the technical knowledge, but also upskill and have the softer skills, the leadership, the strategy, influencing, the consulting skills, to be able to take that next step, to be able to when the opportunity arises, to be able to sit at the boardroom table and engage with the executives on an equal playing field, an equal footing, where it's not felt that the individual only has a technical capability. So it's vital. You will see as part of the SIPS qualifications, both on level 6, a lot of those softer skills are included, and that's part of the problem that I think in terms of students in Africa, if they're not following through all the way, they're not necessarily picking up some of those softer skills that are critical, in my opinion, if procurement is to become a strategic function. And all indications are that for the next 20 or 30 years, as the world moves towards a green economy, procurement and supply chain are going to be absolutely central to that transition, and are going to be real role players, provided that we've earned the right to have a seat at the table and to obviously make a contribution.
Thank you. We can have another presenter. Okay, I think there was the hand raised by Butle. Butle, can you respond? Can you ask the question? Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, facilitator. I think on account of the flurry of questions that have been posed, I won't bother you with much or many questions. I'll just try and focus on those that I think will be the highlight of this presentation and other responses already given. I'm joining you from the Kingdom of Eswatini. We have made great strides in procurement. I've seen a chat of one of my colleagues proposing that as Eswatini, perhaps in the future, we should also have a slate in your program so that we also make a presentation. Having said that, thank you for the presentation with Zambia. I hope they're still on the podium. If not, I think they'll recollect what they said. On contract management, I have a question there. I saw that they have a system where one may opt to use the Attorney General. I think on that slide, it was the last item on that slide. So my question is, do even parastatals and local governments have to consult the Attorney General before entering into procurement contracts? Because in our jurisdiction, the Attorney General is there to service the central government in the main. So that will be my question to Zambia. Then the other question that I'll throw in the air for all our professionals to help us with is with regard to best practice. Oftentimes, we hear of this balance of international best practice, but my colleagues in Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency have also raised interest in knowing where is this best practice coded. As a country far down south, how would I know what is the best practice in the trend in the landscape of public procurement? Is there a code of best practice that we can take a cue from? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take another question? Then we can have a response. Okay, in the absence of any questions, Zambia, can you respond?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We, in our act, it doesn't matter who it is, as long as whether they are a parastatal, whether they are a ministry or a spending agency, contracts have to go through the Attorney General's office. They have to be actually approved by the Attorney General. So that is why that module is there, because it's one of the procedures. Then the contract management, of course, after the contract has been approved by the Attorney General, it's up to the PE now to appoint a contract manager who will be responsible and run with that contract and ensure that things are delivered on time. And it is in our law that we appoint a contract manager. So just to answer his question, it's mandatory actually that contracts go before the Attorney General. And in our current law now, it even has to go through the Ministry of Finance, through the Treasury, to confirm that funds are there, not to clear the contracts. So now we have a two-way process. It has to go through the Treasury, through Ministry of Finance, as well as the Attorney General. And the reason is simple. The Attorney General is the government, is the chief legal advisor of the government, and every contract that is entered into, they have to ensure that it doesn't give the government well, I would say, doesn't bring the government into disrepute, or there are certain hidden terms which may bring, which may cost the government a lot of money in case of a breach. It takes a bit of time, but it's a necessary evil, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? I think there was a. We don't have any more questions.
Yes, my question, I had two questions, sorry. So the other one related to international best practice. Is it coded somewhere? Where do we find it? Thank you.
All right. Craig, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can answer that. So obviously SIPS has the global standard, and that's a standard that more than 3,000 professionals come together and provide input to obviously update the global standard on a regular basis. So the last time that it was updated was in fact this year, and it's best practice from a global perspective. So obviously not necessarily country specific, but looking at different regions across the world. But there are definitely within the regions, there are also examples of best practice, and that's why we have the Procurement Excellence Program. So that's a program that is contextualized specifically for entities within a particular region. It's on the back of the global standard, but obviously there are nuances in different markets with regards to particular pieces of legislation that entities need to comply with. So we have obviously in South Africa, we have different pieces of legislation, whether they be the triple PFMA or for national or state-owned entities, or whether that's the Municipal Finance Management Act at a local government level. But from a global standard perspective, we obviously have that as kind of the blueprint, and then we contextualize in and around that global standard.
Thank you, Mr. Njuja. Your hand was up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kinnekai. I just wanted to first appreciate the response I got from Zambia pertaining to institutions that would be engaging non-compliant professionals or non-compliant individuals to perform procurement responsibilities. To say maybe as a word of advice to all of us as we look into our legislations. I think if we don't also manage the procurement from the perspective of an organizational side of things, we may not be able to fully reach where we want to go. For instance, I will be struck off the register for impropriety, but the organization will continue to engage me, and I will continue. If I'm not noticed or it is not known, there are no implications or no obligation on the organizations to strictly comply with the law. So I think as a way forward, let us also look at a process of also managing that space, managing that gap within the both private and public institutions, so that we have a total picture of managing the actions of procurement professionals, as well as the organizations that they work for. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, encouragement, or questions?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. For me, it's just to buttress the points from my colleagues. I think Craig did justice to the responses, especially to the questions from Paul, where we're talking of professionals between the public and the private. So he touched on a greater part of it. One thing which I just wanted to emphasize on is when we are talking of public funds, you know, being public funds by any act in any jurisdiction, there must be accountability issues. Then becomes tops there. So that's the reason why we also are talking to that space. But however, like you said, I encourage our colleagues to make sure that the code of ethics and all, we are on the same page with regards to that. No wonder why we then work together in these councils, procurement councils, so that peer review, peer checking and all is very necessary, because even when we are employing, we also take people from the private sector. So we also want people with integrity and all other characteristics which I talked about earlier on. Then from the emotional intelligence side, where he said mainly the public procurement, they are viewed as police. Yeah, but we must also be cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of arbitrage, a lot of speculative behavior when it comes to the bidding community dealing with the public procurement, where because of other reasons, their pricing is always on the high side. And if we are not on the check, probably I'm talking from a scenario where my scenario is hyperinflationary, and if you are not careful, you wipe up all the budgets through very few transactions. So there's that eye again, where yes, by extension, by definition, because we are implementing an act of parliament, but also by association, we work with the treasury to make sure that those monetary and fiscal policies which are put in place, we support them by being the gatekeeper there. And the noises also come from that side. But if one is to look at the flip side, to look at the benefits, especially when you put those stops, you would find that it's also necessary. But I hear him that we also need that to have that a bigger picture in terms of then what is it in the greater scheme of things we are trying to achieve as professionals. Then lastly, from Wilke there, when he was talking of the best practice, yes, over and above what Craig has said, we are also saying, let's also be encouraged to look at what the multinational institutions and bilateral institutions then put as their guiding principles in terms of policies and procedures when it comes to procurement. We find it very necessary. If one is to look into that, also coupled with be it ISO standards and all, you find that if you only encompass that into your processes, you may find up coming up with best documents and best practices there. I thought I would make that remark before we conclude. Other than that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other comments or encouragement?
I have shared the SIPS global standard on the chat, the link, and it's freely available to everybody. So if anybody's interested, they can obviously go and download it and have a look at it and see what they can use of it and learn from it to better their particular situation or scenario.
Thank you. I think now we have reached to the end of the program, and let me thank everybody for the contributions they've made, and also the sponsoring partners. Let me appreciate them, and what I would encourage is that let us assist each other in terms of knowledge sharing. I think we are all at different levels in terms of implementation of professionalization, and the experiences that we've had becomes very invaluable. And you just be prepared that different colleagues from different parts of the continent may actually request to come and see how you are doing or how you've managed to achieve implement your systems. So with that, let me say thank you and good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Ray Lucas. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.